we are all dysfunctional. We are in a mess. David said, I was born in sin and I was shapen in iniquity. We're so messed up, y'all, we don't know right from wrong anymore. Even in the church, we don't know top from bottom anymore. We call good bad and bad good. And we're confused about God's will for us today, especially when it comes to relationships. Even in the church. If ever there was a time, church, that we need a message of hope, that time is now. Come on, say amen. If ever there was a time that we need a clear word from the Lord, that time is now. If ever there was a time that we need a word that will bring about reconciliation and healing in our families, that time is now. Malachi said that before the Lord comes, he will send Elijah. Did y'all hear me? Well, what exactly does this mean? Why Elijah? What was Elijah's message? Well, in order to understand the Elijah message and why we need that message today, we've got to go back to the story of Elijah. I'm going to invite you to turn with me to the book of 1 Kings, chapter 18 and verse 20, if you would. 1 Kings, chapter 18, and we're going to begin at verse 20. It's an interesting story couched here in the book of 1 Kings. And beginning at verse 20, it says, So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people, and he said to them, How long will you waver? The King James Version says, How long halt you between two opinions? How long are you going to remain caught between two things? How long are you going to take to make up your mind? If God is God, then serve him. But if Baal be God, then serve Baal. You see, what you got to understand is that the people were caught between two things. They were caught between Baal on one hand, and they were caught between God on the other hand. King Ahab had taken for a wife a woman by the name of Jezebel. Jezebel was one of the most wicked queens to ever sit upon the throne of Israel. She was the daughter of a Zidonian king named Ethbaal. I mean, his very name said, I'm devoted to worshiping Baal. He was a servant of Baal. He was devoted to Baal. And yet, he took this man's daughter to be his wife. And this woman would turn his heart away from God. And not only would she turn his heart away, but she influenced the whole nation. Baal worship spread like wildfire. You see, Baal were a number of different gods. And they were thought to be over different realms. There was a Baal over the trees. There was a Baal over the streams. And then the chief Baal, the chief god, was called the storm god. He was the one who was often pictured with a thunderbolt in his hand. He was the god, or a god, who had the power to send rain, the power to send fire, the God who was responsible for thunder and lightning. He was the storm god. He controlled the elements in the heavens. The people began to worship Baal. Whoever said that it doesn't matter who you marry? You better make sure, if you are single or if you're dating, and I'm going to talk about it some more next Sabbath, that the person you are about to marry is worshiping your God. Just because they're worshiping God doesn't mean they're worshiping your God. Jezebel and many of the people worship gods, but they weren't worshiping the God of Israel. Just because they're worshiping a God does not mean they're worshiping your God.